Greetings one and all. Our outdoor look today is one of the major customers for Tesla is a company called JB Hunt. So my thumbnail as well as the video I had behind was of a JB Hunt truck. And I wanted to dive into our conversation today because it's rare. One more light. It's rare for us to get a chance to dive into new developments on the truck, but a new one has come up that I think is pretty important. So we're going to be looking into what's going on with range issues relative to the Tesla truck. So I wanted to note this because, again, everybody wants to say there's a nice picture of it. Let's take a look at it. So number one, we're looking at the truck. Number two, we're looking at software challenges relative to Autopilot 2. And number three, we're taking a brief look at what's going on with the ramp of the Model 3 and issues related to Tesla's stock price based on numbers of vehicles that are being produced. Thanks for joining us once again. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. If this is your first, hey John, if this is your first time on our channel, thanks for joining us. If you're returning, welcome back. Please also note we have a couple of ads in our videos typically. Please take 5 to 7 seconds because your viewing of some of those ads helps support our channel. We'd also greatly appreciate support. Any support you can provide, even $1 or $2 on Patreon makes a difference in contributing to us having better setup on equipment. So, and then, finally, I can see all you guys saying hello from all over the world, and we really appreciate seeing you, but our viewer has asked that we wait until the end to acknowledge you. So please take time out to listen to our talk, and any questions, etc., happy to answer at the end. Also, I also wanted to note that even if you just hit the like button, it makes a difference because those likes actually determine where the video is ranked relative to other things that viewers can be viewing. So I have to admit that what we like to do is at least once a month, if not twice a month, do a focus on trucks. I wanted to note that according to number 2 at Daimler, I guess he's number 4 at Daimler at the time, his opinion is that the Tesla truck is the most important vehicle to come out in the last 120 years. And so with that in mind, I think quality information that we get about the truck, can be impactful and help us all understand where we're at and where we're going. So the big news that you may or may have not learned about is that there's a bunch of video over the last 24 hours and photos related to the main silver semi returning to the LA Design Center. The intrigue here is that vehicle has spent most of the last 4 or 5 months either going between Fremont and the Gigafactory or rotating through the Midwest on a tour amongst some of the larger buyers of the vehicle. Now, as I was thinking about, well, what's new that we know about the truck that we didn't know about before that's useful, something very interesting popped up, which is the distance between a place called Fremont, California, if you look at your map, and a place called Los Angeles, California, is approximately 300 miles. Now, why is this a big deal? Because Tesla has kind of two recharge facilities. One is in a place called Kettleman City. The other one is called Harris Ranch, California. The Harris Ranch is sort of the first location that Tesla installed any kind of a large supercharger facility was in Harris Ranch, and a lot of the new and experimental stuff they'll do with the superchargers is in Harris Ranch. A new facility was built in Kettleman where Tesla is testing out having food and other things. So it may not be the biggest in the world, but in terms of Tesla experiments, it's sort of the #1 facility for Tesla to test out ideas relative to how it's going to handle the gigafactory, etc. Now, today's talk is kind of weird, interesting. What's fascinating is that there are a number of owners of Teslas that drive between basically Los Angeles and San Francisco. There are suburbs to both cities, to and from where people are really going. But in effect, those are the two locations. This location, both Harris Ranch and now Kettleman City, draw heavy traffic. Friday night in particular and Sunday night in particular can result in a 2 to 3 hour long wait for the use of those gigafactory or those superchargers because of how many people are moving at that time, the number of bays that are needed, and the number of people that own Teslas in California, because they have so many great benefits, one of which is that you get to use the carpool lane, even if it's only one person in the car, because it's all electric. So California is a very important location when it comes to electric EVs, etc., because they have huge pollution problems that they're trying to address. So that sort of sets up why and how we're talking about the truck. So what's interesting here is that we have a distance between the two locations of 300 miles. What's fascinating is the semi-truck, and we're assuming fully loaded, is being recharged at, call it the 150-mile mark, which is at Kettleman City. So the question is, why is that the case when in theory, one way for the truck should be 600 miles? You could argue, well, that's a reality because the truck really doesn't go 600 miles. It goes about 250, and if you're 150 miles away from LA, that's the time you want to charge back up because you still have approximately 100 miles to Fremont. So that's a theory that would sort of pop up immediately as to why this is occurring. The real answer to this is that in both the case of the gigafactory to the Fremont plant and the Los Angeles facility back to Fremont, it turns out that the distance that we're talking about should be well within the range of this truck. The problem to consider is something called the El Cajon Pass. So if you look at the map just above Los Angeles, and I may even make this my thumbnail, there's actually a place called the El Cajon Pass. And in the case of that pass, it's not a complex situation. You basically have between 1,000 and 2,000 feet of elevation. Maybe it's 1,500, maybe it's 2,500. I'll double check that so we can include that in the notes. But with this elevation, you run into an interesting problem because all of a sudden that truck with all that weight has to climb that mountain. And if the Tesla drivers had decided to try to torque that mountain at 65 miles an hour rather than go on the steep part at a lower speed, and then once you get to the flat part of the hill, then you sort of go at 65, etc., then you can have this issue, which is that hill sucks more energy in order to drive at maximum speed. So another sort of look at the numbers is that it may be because they had the baby or the 300-mile range truck with them at the time, but from the Gigafactory to the Fremont plant is 225 miles, and the trucks, both the silver one at 600 miles now or 500 miles and the black one at 300 miles ended up stopping about 85 miles in a place called Rockland, California, to be recharged. So in essence, if this truck was running perfectly on the numbers Elon was talking about, the silver truck would just run straight to the Fremont plant, charge up there after it's delivered its load and been done. There's no need for an extra stop. So what this is implying is there's a difference, just like with the EPA ratings we all know about, between the mileage rating that the truck has and the actually experienced miles that the truck is experiencing. So just for giggles, most of the cells, if they're being handled properly, you don't want to bring them down to less than 20% of their battery life. So basically what this is suggesting then is at fully loaded from Los Angeles, you're traveling 150 miles before you're charging up and then getting back to fully charged and rolling into Fremont from there. So let's call it, with a 2,000 elevation mountain between you and Los Angeles, this vehicle is only getting, call it 350 to 400 miles, even though it's rated at 500 miles of range, partially to protect the battery, partially because going up those mountains takes a lot out. Elon is proud of the fact that you can run at 65 miles an hour while you're going over these hills, but a lot of the owners of these trucks are more worried about their range and not having a load left on the road than they are how fast you can climb a mountain. Almost irrelevant. And so Elon has a need for speed, but people like JB Hunt, who I've showed you that truck from, are more worried about the vehicle making it along that run. So I wanted to bring this up because there's something called the time value of money. So if you have some engineers and they're out on the road, your best option is to have them working on things within the factory or within the plant rather than sitting on the road. So there's no attempt by Tesla to have engineers out on the road for extended periods of time, because obviously there's overtime, but there's a lot more they can do with and to the trucks when they're sitting in the main facility, which is currently in Sunnyvale, California, or at one of the other factories post to delivery. So is this a big deal? Well, it kind of raises the issue that's kind of interesting, which is if you have a 500-mile vehicle and you're getting about 75 to 90 miles before you have to juice it up, one, because it's below freezing or below zero, and two, because you're going over 7,000 feet hills, this is an issue that is part of the testing process of figuring out how and what really works with these trucks. Clearly, ICE does have an advantage because you pretty much can run the truck either hot and cold, and the range is the same, so it remains an ICE advantage over the whole electric world, including Tesla right now. This is also interesting, though, because it really shows the advantage Tesla has, because in the case of Daimler Benz, their trucks only go 100 miles between charges, so they'd never make any of the routes that Tesla's currently testing on with their trucks. So Tesla's still ahead. We can see good reasons why people are interested and want to drive these trucks. Looking forward to any and all of your comments based on this, but in essence, with a 2,000 or 3,000 foot elevation, we're seeing between 350 and 400 miles on a 600 or 500 mile battery. And in the case of 7,000 feet of elevation, we're seeing, call it 150 miles of usable space where you're really not overtaxing the battery because you're getting way low or way high in terms of the amount of juice you're using as a way to preserve the cells that are within that battery. So next, I wanted to move on to the whole discussion of software issues relative to Ap2. Folks, as I've said before, we're still, the latest iteration is we had a Model S run into a police car. Obviously, that was unfortunate and sad to see. But again, I'm saying that it's my belief that the folks that built the software for the Ap2 told Elon it was going to take them 2 or 3 years to get it totally right. We're heading for, I guess, year 2 would be in September on this. As you can see, our backdrop of the JB Hunt truck is sort of taking off right now. And so, sort of my backdrop, and I was going to be using it at the end to say goodbye to our JB Hunt truck, but it said goodbye to me first. And so I just wanted to, straight, because JB Hunt has stated they're buying a number of the Tesla trucks in order to install them in drayage, which is moving freight to and from the port in Los Angeles. So I thought it was an interesting idea to have one of their tractor trailers as our backdrop. So getting back to Ap2. Ap2 is having its challenges. I think it's a good piece of software. I think there's a lot of good hardware associated with it that will bring Tesla ahead of everybody else. But I think we need another 8 months to a year before it's fully baked. I think it's half baked right now. So we've stated, until we stop getting one crash a week, let's have you all not use AP over 40 miles per hour, because fixed objects seem to be, this thing seems to love to go after fixed objects sitting on the side of the road, be it a police car, an abutment, or whatever it is. There seems to be a challenge here, and we want you to be healthy and enjoy your vehicle during that period. The final thing I wanted to cover is the fact that we just went to a shutdown of Model 3. One of the things I've been doing is keeping an eye on our local service facility, and it's been picked clean of Model 3 owners that have gotten their new vehicles. And so there's no Model 3s sitting around waiting to be sold, because everyone's waiting on new shipments. I want to say congratulations to the folks in Canada for getting their initial allotments of Model 3's arrival. And I look forward to my friends from there letting know how things are going with their vehicles. At any rate, we don't like to belabor if there isn't a huge amount extra to cover. I sometimes make an effort to roam onto topics that I think are interesting, that are sidebar notes, particularly for my friends in Europe. I wanted to have you guys look up something called the Tractor, the Tractor Store. What's stunning about it is I happened to meet a gentleman who's an analyst, and it's called a Tractor Supply Store. And what's wild about it is they're adding 100 stores a year currently. All the stores that are open are seeing year-over-year growth in sales, and they're relatively unique, so they don't have a lot of competitors, and the stock price is doing extremely well as a result. So it's a sidebar note. If you're not fully Tesla focused, it might be a company to take a peek at, because I had never heard of them before, Tractor Supply Store. But I met an analyst who thinks they're amazing. It might be something for you guys to take a peek at on the side that might be lucrative. And we like for any and all of us to do well, be it stock, be it Tesla, etc. Gives you more cash to invest in your EV future. Wanted to thank you all for taking time once out. Again, this is our Thursday show. Our next appearance will be on Sunday. Would love to have any and all comments. Aaron Pounds, I saw your comment regarding Tesla maybe choosing to just stop the vehicle randomly. Howdy, David. Yeah, by the way, that is another issue. Thanks for the mention there from Sweden. There was big news this week, which is Elon has been bitching about the press, but he did go ahead and solve the braking issues that Consumer Reports raised in terms of the distance of braking. So Elon isn't just blowing off the press. He's getting a lot of bad press from folks who are generally anti-Tesla, but he will respond to legitimate arguments that are made, etc. Thanks for the comment, David. I think those are valid. What I am fascinated by is the whole EPA rating thing in the United States. We have a thing going where EPA will give you, this is the ratings for the car, and then everybody experiences way less, everybody experiences way less range than that. And I think that when it comes to trucks and people moving goods, they really need to have it carefully tested out. In particular, one thing I was thinking about is I've actually met a few of the folks from UPS that run, there's a route for UPS on a truck that runs from Phoenix, Arizona through Los Angeles to San Francisco. And the gentlemen that ride that route are exactly the customer that Tesla might be using, because vehicles that stay in California for long periods, the state is really trying to move them over to less polluting vehicles. So if there's any place that I think Tesla might be the choice, I think that route may end up being one. At any rate, again, a reminder, could use your help on Patreon if you would. Please take time to watch at least 5 seconds of our ads that we place. We'll keep the number down. Would appreciate your support in that regard. Please remember to like if the comments you found useful. It really makes a difference in our ranking, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. Please also share questions or issues you might have. It may end up being a part of our next show, and we love to sort of research items that have been raised and try to respond to them effectively. At any rate, thanks once again for your time. We look forward to Tesla finishing off the Gigafactory repairs so that we can get back to or start hunting that 10,000 units a week as a way to get Tesla into the profitable zone it needs to be in to sort of exist as a firm. And remember, if you're a supporter of Tesla, please drop off your vehicle. Don't have them pick you up at the service facility if you have repair that needs to be done. And also remember that if you can afford to prepay for your vehicle, do so, because they're definitely cash short. And by prepaying on your vehicle, perhaps as you're ordering, it would really be a help to the company. You know you're going to get your car, and they get to get the cash on hand, which they can use to help make operations work better. Once again, really appreciate your time. Tschüss, German. Au revoir, French. Farvel, Dutch, my newest one. You know, I'm starting to get it. Please also note that my new pronunciation word from someone is Daimler, not Daimler. And so he'll know that I pronounced it correctly. Daimler is experiencing challenges with getting a battery out that makes them competitive. Our next show kind of looks at the new e-tron from VW and its range, etc. And we look forward to diving into that. Thanks again for taking time out. Lahitraot, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, Nof Respect Walk Goodman, Jamaican Patwa. Have a great day, and thanks again for visiting with us.